What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Kevin Hoop Show. We're going to be talking a little bit about Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal today. And just real quick, if you guys are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Getting down into the good shit now. We are talking Jorge Masvidal, Gilbert Burns. It's coming up in 2 weeks. It's the co-main event, which can easily be a main event in my opinion. This is a main event level event. Gilbert Burns, ranked number 5. Jorge Masvidal has a really big name in general, ranked number 11 though. So right on the brisk of things, but just fought Colby Covington about a year ago. And I think just because of his inactivity, that's really the reason he's dropped in rankings. But I think he's still got a lot left in the tank when it comes to how long he's going to keep on fighting and how well he's going to look. There was a whole bunch of legal stuff that I believe that happened after he did whatever with Colby Covington. Either way, he's coming back in 2 weeks, this April 8th in Miami. Shout out to the watch party we are going to be doing on Saturday, April 8th. We are going to be going live and doing a watch party on Saturday. So tune in. We're going to be doing a whole watch party. We're going to be having beer. We're going to be having titties. We're going to be having a lot of fun. Going to be a good time. We're going to be betting on the fights, throwing money everywhere. It's going to be a great time. So feel free to stop by on Saturday, April 8th. Let's start getting down into the nitty gritty though. I think Jorge Masvidal obviously has been in the UFC for a long time, since about 2013. And Gilbert Burns has been in the UFC for a good amount of time as well. He's been in the UFC since 2014. But the one thing I do think that Jorge Masvidal has on Gilbert, and just when it comes to how long they've been in it, I think Jorge Masvidal has the advantage of fighting in the US, like he lives here. I don't think Gilbert Burns necessarily lives here. He might. I could be wrong about that. I also think that Jorge Masvidal is the type of guy to, show up when a guy has to cancel out or, couldn't make it onto a fight night. And I think he's that guy to step up a lot of the times. He's that guy that, tries to get as many fights in a year, or at least when he was just getting fresh in the UFC and just getting into the UFC, I do think he was constantly trying to fight at least 3 times a year. I think that Jorge Masvidal might have a little bit more experience, especially in some higher experience fights. I do think Jorge Masvidal, up until maybe about last year, I think was having a whole bunch of high level fights. He fought Kamaru Usman twice. He fought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, even though he lost. He fought Darren Till. He fought Ben Askren, which granted it only lasted, 3.2 seconds. But I do think that he still had a good game plan and had good preparation for that type of style fight. So I think that he has a lot of this good experience that he can bring to this Gilbert Burns fight, who I do think that, when it comes to skill, I think is up there with these top guys. He's obviously top 5 right now. He's ranked 5th. So I do think that he has that capability of being that number 1 contender. And I do think that so does Jorge Masvidal if he wins against Gilbert Burns. The only difference is I do think the winner of this fight could be different. I don't think it's necessarily going to be, whoever wins this fight will fight the number 1 contender or the number 2 guy. It could be a little different, maybe just because Jorge Masvidal is coming from 11, but I could be wrong about that. That's my main reason, I think, because Jorge Masvidal is coming from 11. I think, it might be a big jump to replace Gilbert Burns at 5, but we're going to have to see. That's going to be all up to the rankings and really what happens with Leon Edwards in the next few months, because obviously Colby Covington's name's getting thrown around, but who knows where that could go. Colby Covington could end up fighting the winner of this fight, and in my opinion, it would probably be Gilbert Burns. If Gilbert Burns wins this fight, I think it will be Colby Covington. I think if Jorge Masvidal wins this fight, I think he could get somebody a little lower, maybe like Belal Muhammad. But it's all up in the air really until we see who actually wins this fucking fight. Now, one interesting statistic to look at for me was the takedown percentage for these guys and kind of where they were with takedowns and takedown defense. Now, obviously, Jorge Masvidal is the type of fighter to really like to stay on the feet. He doesn't really like to go to the ground a lot. He's not the biggest grappling type of fighter when it comes to MMA, even though he has a wrestling background in college, I believe. But either way, I do think maybe not college. I don't know if Jorge Masvidal is the type of guy for college, but I think he does have a somewhat good wrestling background, especially when his takedown defense is 70+%. And Gilbert Burns actually has a 48% takedown defense. So comparing 70% takedown defense to 48%, I do think that, you know, obviously Jorge Masvidal has the better takedown defense. Now, when it comes to takedown accuracy, you would think, all right, well then, you know, Gilbert Burns should have a better takedown accuracy. If he's just not, you know, taking people down a lot or not, you know, defending the takedown, he's probably welcoming the ground, which I completely understand. I think that's a viable option. Gilbert Burns' takedown accuracy is 35%. And to be more specific, 13 of 82 landed. So 13 out of 82 is really fucking shitty, and obviously it shows with the 35%. And I actually compared that to Jorge Masvidal, who isn't really known to be the biggest takedown guy, but Jorge Masvidal is 15 for 59. So he's gone for 30 whole less takedowns compared to Gilbert Burns and has landed 2 more. So I don't think it's like the biggest statistic to compare. I just think that when it comes to grappling, I think Jorge Masvidal probably has the better grappling, in my opinion. It might seem that Gilbert Burns has the better grappling, but what I really think it is, Jorge Masvidal has the better wrestling when it comes to takedowns and takedown defense, and Gilbert Burns has a more better understanding of submissions and finishing submissions. When you look at Gilbert Burns' win method, he has 6 wins by knockout, 6 wins by decision, and 9 wins by submission. So I think that when it comes to finishing fights, he usually goes for a submission, and it usually works for him because he knows how to put them in properly because he's pretty good at jiu-jitsu. And when it comes to takedown defense and takedowns in general, I think it's not necessarily there because that's not the biggest thing that jiu-jitsu focuses on. And when it comes to wrestling, that is what takedowns and takedown defense is really what wrestling is all about. So I do think that that's where Jorge Masvidal has the strength. But if it goes to the ground, I think Gilbert Burns may have the advantage because takedown accuracy and takedown defense doesn't really have a story for what happens on the ground of a fight after the takedown or takedown defense has happened. I think when it comes to striking, Gilbert Burns is definitely a good striker. He definitely is an elite striker. He's fought guys like Kamaru Usman. You're gonna have to have somewhat good striking against him. And when it comes to Jorge Masvidal, he's fucking got it. You know, we've all seen him in the backyard fucking fights and whatnot. And I do think that Jorge Masvidal, it all just depends on if it is his night. He's going to be looking like the best striker we've ever seen in MMA. So if we see that basically Jorge Masvidal that we saw against Nate Diaz, it's going to be a fucking good night for Jorge Masvidal. But I do think that Gilbert Burns has the chance to possibly get a big upset. I do think that even though Gilbert Burns is ranked 5, I think Jorge Masvidal might be coming in the favorite. I don't know what the betting odds are yet. I haven't even looked at him yet, but I do think Jorge Masvidal can somewhat be a favorite. You know, he's fought Colby Covington, he's fought Kamaru Usman twice, and those were all pretty recent in the past 2 to 3 years. Gilbert Burns fought Kamaru Usman back in 2019, 2020. I really do think that Gilbert Burns has the potential to really get a big upset here and make that shot for the title belt against Leon Edwards if he wins. Either way, we're not going to figure out until this next Saturday. I said next Saturday. We've got 2 weeks before this, April 8th. We're going to be going live at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a good time once again. We always bet on the fights. Even some of you guys make good calls and good predictions. It's always a fun time. We're making jokes. It's an absolute fantastic time. So come by, watch the fights with us and watch at the same time. Either way, it's going to be a good fucking couple weeks until this fight happens. So with that, tune into this channel every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Give this video a like. If you're new, hit that subscribe button and have a great fucking day.